Every holiday season brought the same war. Not excuse. There simply isn't enough space for you and your children. My mother would tell me gently, as though soft words could somehow erase the sting of rejection. Year after year, I'd find myself standing on the porch, gripping gift bags in one hand and my kids' small fingers in the other, listening to the muffled sounds of my nieces and nephews ripping through wrapping paper just beyond that locked door. Last December, I convinced myself things might finally change. I spent hours baking cookies, carefully wrapping presents, and even called ahead to confirm we were expected. Yet on Christmas Eve, there I was again, standing on the front steps of the house where I grew up, my daughter tugging at my coat and asking, "Mom, why can't we go inside?" Through the frosted window, I could see the dining table already crowded with people. Angela's twin boys, her husband, even her mother-in-law, everyone except us. My mother opened the door just enough to smile politely and say, "Perhaps next year." I didn't argue. I simply nodded, took my children back to the car, and quietly decided that next year would belong to me. I stayed silent as we drove home that evening. Emma, my 6-year-old, hummed softly in the back seat, probably trying to distract herself from the confusion she couldn't quite put into words yet. My son Ryan had already dozed off, clutching the little reindeer stuffed animal he'd been so excited to show Grandma. When we arrived at our small 2-bedroom apartment, I tucked them into bed, kissed their foreheads, and stared at the empty corner of the living room where a Christmas tree should have stood. Then I sat down at the kitchen table, poured myself a glass of cheap wine, and opened the text from my sister. "Hope you're not too upset. Mom was really stressed this year. Maybe stop by tomorrow. For leftovers and second place treatment, after everyone else had already celebrated, unwrapped gifts, and shared laughter, I didn't respond. This wasn't just about tonight. This had been building for years, slow and quiet and relentless, like water dripping from a broken faucet. Eventually, you stopped noticing the sound. It started with small moments. A birthday dinner I never got the invitation to because we assumed you were working late. My mother's retirement party that I only found out about through a post online. A family barbecue where Angela tagged everyone in a group photo, everyone except me. Each time, I told myself it was just a miscommunication, that they weren't being intentional, that I shouldn't make waves. But even when I brought it up carefully, gently, my mother would smile and say, "Oh, sweetheart, you're always welcome here." Always welcome unless the table's too crowded, unless Angela's family is visiting, unless the room just isn't big enough. That night, I made myself a promise. I was finished pretending that being treated like an afterthought was acceptable. I was finished letting my children grow up thinking it was normal for their mother to be invisible. And more than anything, I was finished with the illusion of next year. There would be no more knocking on closed doors. If they couldn't make space for us, I would build an entirely new table, one with comfortable chairs, glowing lights, and room for people who genuinely wanted to be there. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew this much. Next Christmas, we wouldn't be standing outside on someone's porch. We'd be opening our own front door. 6 months before that freezing Christmas Eve, my marriage officially ended. There were no dramatic fights, no door slamming scenes, just silence and the sound of two people slowly drifting apart over years of unmet needs and exhausted compromises. David and I sat at opposite ends of a long wooden table, ironic really, and signed the final documents. He kept the house in Charlotte. I took the kids and the car and moved back to my hometown of Charleston. I told myself I was returning for support, for family, for familiarity and stability for Emma and Ryan. What I didn't realize was that I was walking straight back into the same dynamic I'd spent years trying to escape. My parents welcomed me politely, but with that tight-lipped tone that made it clear they thought I'd somehow failed. Angela never said it out loud, but she didn't need to. She wore her sense of superiority like expensive perfume, just strong enough to make sure everyone around her could smell it. The apartment I found wasn't impressive. 2 cramped bedrooms, worn tile floors, and a leaky faucet that groaned like it had complaints. But it was ours. I landed a job as a junior marketing assistant at a boutique agency downtown. The salary was modest, but the work energized me. I started picking up freelance design projects at night, creating logos, building websites, writing copy. Some nights I worked until 2 in the morning, eyes burning, heart racing, because even if nobody else saw my value, I would prove it to myself. On nights when the kids were asleep, I'd sit on the floor of our living room with takeout containers scattered around me and sketch blueprints, literal drawings of the life I wanted. A real home, a backyard, a kitchen filled with noise and warmth and people I loved. A Christmas that didn't require anyone's permission. Emma taped one of those sketches to the fridge. It showed a big house with a red door, snow on the roof, and 3 stick figures holding hands out front. Underneath, in her wobbly first-grade handwriting, she'd written, "Home, just us." I kept working. Every client I took on, every dollar I saved, every late night and early morning I poured into that vision. Not to prove anything to my family, but to prove something to the little girl who used to sit at the kids' table and wonder why there was never room for her anywhere else. To the woman now, raising a daughter and a son, determined that they would never feel like visitors in their own story. Momentum has a funny way of arriving when you stop waiting for permission. By spring, my freelance calendar was completely booked. Local coffee shops needed websites. A yoga studio hired me to redesign their brand. A small law firm wanted monthly social media management. I worked during nap time, after bedtime, between school drop-offs and morning meetings. It was exhausting, but it was mine. At the agency, my boss started noticing. One afternoon, after I presented a campaign pitch to a client that earned enthusiastic applause, he pulled me aside. "You've got genuine instincts," he said. 2 weeks later, I was promoted to senior marketing associate. 2 months after that, to account manager. And with each step forward, the vision I'd sketched on napkins and children's artwork came closer to reality. One Thursday in early October, I drove past a house. It wasn't glamorous. In fact, it looked a little worn down, its paint peeling, porch light hanging crooked, yard overgrown with ivy. But there was something about it. A wide front porch, large bay windows, and a bold red door that seemed to whisper, "We're ready for something new." I pulled over and wrote down the number on the for sale sign. That evening, I looked up the listing. 4 bedrooms, built in 1993, heart pine floors, a dining room with original wainscoting, 10 minutes from the kids' school, 5 minutes from downtown. I clicked schedule a tour without hesitation. The first time we stepped inside, Emma ran her fingers along the banister like it was a piano. "Mom," she whispered, "it smells like Christmas." Ryan wandered into the dining room and twirled in the sunlight. I closed my eyes for a moment and I could see it. Garlands draped across the mantel, laughter echoing in the kitchen, a table large enough for 12, set with real glassware instead of plastic cups. 3 weeks later, we closed on the house. When I told my parents, my mother said, "Isn't that a bit excessive, Catherine, for someone in your situation?" My father blinked and said, "I just hope you've really thought this through." Angela sent a text, 4 bedrooms, that's ambitious. Sure you can handle that? I didn't reply. I was too busy tearing up old carpet, repainting walls, and scrubbing away years of someone else's history to make room for our own. Emma chose lavender for her bedroom. Ryan chose dinosaurs. I set up my first ever home office, flooded with sunlight and ambition. And then I stood in the dining room, the heart of the house, and ran my hand across the table I'd bought secondhand but refinished myself. I whispered, "This year we stay home." By November, the house didn't just feel like a place to live. It felt like ours. Every corner held a new story. Emma's watercolor sunflowers taped to the fridge, Ryan's toy trains parked beneath the hallway radiator, stacks of client folders piled high on my office desk. I was juggling more than I ever had, and yet for the first time in years, I felt steady. Then one night, while brushing Emma's hair before bed, she asked, "Mom, who's coming to Christmas this year?" The question landed like a whisper in a cathedral. I'd been so focused on surviving the year that I hadn't let myself imagine December. But the second she asked, the vision snapped into place like a puzzle piece that had been waiting for its moment. I didn't just want to host Christmas. I wanted to redefine it. The next morning, I made a list, not of gifts or groceries, but of people. People who had shown up when my own family didn't. People who had cheered when I succeeded, who had offered rides, watched my kids, passed along job referrals, sent "You've got this" texts at midnight. The list grew quickly. Sarah, my college roommate, whose toddler once called me Aunt Kathy. Mrs. Hopper, our elderly neighbor who dropped off banana bread after every storm. Marcus and Ethan, the couple across the street who helped me move a couch at 9 at night. Lauren, Emma's art teacher, who stayed late every Thursday just because Emma loved painting dragons. 10 seats, 10 hearts, 10 choices. Then came the bold idea. Years ago, Angela had dragged the family to a fine dining restaurant called Magnolia House, where she'd raved endlessly about the executive chef, Adrian Cole, truffle risotto, smoked duck with cherry glaze, hand-whipped mascarpone. She'd posted about it for weeks. I looked him up on a whim, then called the number listed for private bookings. His assistant answered, "All business. Chef Cole's December is fully booked, has been since August." I paused, then said softly, "I'm willing to triple his standard rate." Silence. "I'll check with the chef and call you back." An hour later, my phone rang. "Miss Warren, Chef Cole would be honored to prepare Christmas dinner in your home." I stared at my calendar. It was the 3rd week of November. We had 1 month. The menu was breathtaking. Herb, crusted lamb, smoked mushroom ravioli, chocolate souffle with spiced citrus cream, sparkling cider for the kids in crystal glasses I'd just bought on sale. I ordered invitations, not printed ones, handwritten. The header read, "Join us for Christmas, a celebration of chosen family and good food." The closing line, "Seats have already been made. All you need to do is arrive hungry and loved." Christmas morning arrived, crisp and golden. Sunlight poured into the kitchen as Chef Cole and his 2 assistants transformed my modest southern home into something out of a magazine. The aroma of rosemary, butter, and warm bread floated through the air like a hymn. I tied Emma's ribbon while Ryan carefully placed napkins at each setting, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 10. When the doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon, our guests stepped into warmth. Sarah brought wine and her daughter's laughter. Mrs. Harper handed Emma a tin of cookies wrapped in a red ribbon. Marcus and Ethan arrived with a homemade wreath. Lauren brought watercolor cards painted by her students, one of which featured my house, complete with its red door. We toasted with sparkling cider and champagne. We laughed. We ate food that tasted like it had stories behind it. Chef Cole explained each course with pride, and the kids beamed as if he were Santa in chef's whites. At one point, I stepped back from the table and just breathed. No tension, no forced smiles, no silent measuring of worth. Only joy. After dessert, we moved to the living room for hot cocoa and board games. Emma challenged Ethan to Candyland. Ryan fell asleep on Mrs. Harper's lap. Marcus played quiet jazz on the piano, and I, impulsively, nervously, picked up my phone. I hadn't posted much all year, maybe a few photos of the kids, some vague quotes, but this moment felt earned. I took 3 photos, the dining table glowing in candlelight, food untouched and perfect, Emma and Ryan laughing in the kitchen with Chef Cole in the background, a group shot of me, the kids, and our guests, all raising our glasses, caught in that warm, blurry magic only real moments create. The captions were simple, grateful for friends who feel like family. When Christmas feels like coming home. December 25th, surrounded by love. I hit post. Within an hour, the likes rolled in, comments too. This looks beautiful, Catherine. You deserve every bit of this. Wait, is that Chef Cole? I smiled until my phone started buzzing. First a call from Angela, then Mom, then Dad. I didn't answer. But when I checked my texts, Angela had written, "Was that really Chef Cole in your photo? How did you even book him? Then, why didn't you invite us?" I stared at that last message for a long time. Why didn't I? Because every Christmas you didn't. Because every year I stood on your porch with children and hope, and you told me there wasn't room. Now I'd made my own room, and this time there truly wasn't space for anyone who only shows up when it's convenient. I didn't reply, not yet. Some things deserve silence first. 3 days after Christmas, just as I was beginning to enjoy the quiet, Angela showed up. No call, no warning, just the sound of tires crunching in the driveway and sharp knuckles rapping against the front door. I opened it slowly, already bracing myself. There she stood in her tan wool coat and designer boots, holding a gift bag in one hand and something sharper in her eyes. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. The warmth of the house met her like a wall. She looked around, taking in the garland, lined banisters, the glowing Christmas tree, the empty wine glasses still drying by the sink. Her gaze lingered on a framed photo on the console table, the group shot from Christmas Day, everyone smiling, everyone glowing. Her expression tightened. "Nice house," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Didn't realize you were doing this well. Thanks," I replied evenly, closing the door behind her. Emma and Ryan were upstairs playing. "I didn't want them to hear this. You can sit," I offered, nodding toward the couch. She stayed standing. "So," she began, her voice too sweet, "you really hired Chef Cole, like the Chef Cole?" "I did. Do you know how many years I've tried to book him for Mom's birthday? Apparently, he doesn't work with difficult clients," I said lightly. Her smile cracked. "You've always been dramatic," she snapped. "Posting those photos, it was petty. It looked like you were trying to make us look bad." I laughed quietly. "You didn't need my help for that." Her eyes narrowed. "You're upset about one Christmas, Catherine. One. And suddenly you're throwing some extravagant dinner and parading it all over social media like you've been abandoned. One." I echoed. "Angela, when was the last time I was invited to any family event where I wasn't treated like a pity invite or excluded entirely?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I'll wait," I added. "I just think," she said, recovering, "that it's sad the way you're acting. All this chosen family stuff, like it's revenge." "It's not revenge," I said, my voice quiet and firm. "It's healing." She scoffed. "No, really. You spent years making me feel like I didn't belong, like my kids were too much, like I had to earn a spot at the table I grew up at. I never meant to make you feel." "You did, Angela. Whether you meant to or not, you did. And nobody ever apologized. Nobody ever said, 'Catherine, we see you. We love you. We're sorry.' You just deflected and changed the subject." She looked down at her shoes. After a long pause, she said softly, "Mom's been crying for days." I said nothing. She feels humiliated. People at church saw the photos. They're asking why you weren't at Christmas. She can tell them the truth. I said simply. "That there wasn't room. She regrets that. Does she?" I asked. "Or is she just upset that other people noticed?" Angela let out a shaky breath. "I know we haven't been fair to you, but this felt like a slap." I looked her straight in the eye. "Good," I said, "because maybe now you understand how it feels." She looked wounded, but I didn't pull it back. "Not this time. I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You already did." I replied, "The day you decided your comfort mattered more than my presence. The day you shut the door and told me to come by for leftovers, the day you smiled like it was reasonable to leave me and my kids standing in the cold. She sank onto the couch. "What do you want?" she asked. I walked to the fireplace, picked up one of the watercolor cards Lauren had given us, and stared at the red door she'd painted on it. "I want respect," I said, not pity, not an invitation out of guilt, just basic human family respect. She swallowed. "And if we changed, could we still be family?" I turned back to her. "If you want to be part of this life, my life, you'll have to earn it. With actions, with honesty, with something real." Silence filled the room, thick and electric. "Then I'll try," she said, voice thin. "Good," I said, "because this time I'm not making space for anyone who doesn't show up with their whole heart." That night, after Angela left, I didn't cry. I thought I might, but instead, I sat in the living room, surrounded by the lingering scent of cinnamon and pine, and watched the fire crackle low. Emma padded down the stairs in her fuzzy socks, clutching her blanket. "Mom," she said, climbing onto the couch beside me, "why did Aunt Angela come?" I hesitated. She wanted to talk. "Is she mad?" "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "She's just learning." "Learning what?" I looked at my daughter's face, so open, so full of questions the world hadn't crushed yet. "Learning how to love better." She blinked, then laid her head on my arm. "I like our kind of love better," she whispered, and just like that, the years of hurt, the slammed doors, the forced smiles, they all softened. Over the next few days, I started noticing more, not about my family, but about ours, the one I was building one day, one boundary, one act of kindness at a time. Emma started setting the table for dinner without being asked. Ryan drew pictures of our house with smiley stick figures labeled me, Mom, and Chef Cole. He drew him wearing a cape. Mrs. Harper started coming by once a week for tea. Marcus and Ethan helped hang new light fixtures. Lauren offered to mentor Emma in watercolor painting. It wasn't blood. It wasn't official, but it was real. And my children, after years of being passed over, hushed or dismissed as too much, at someone else's table, were finally learning what it felt like to be wanted, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because love, the real kind, makes room. One night while tucking Emma in, she turned to me and asked, "Is it okay to say no to people if they make you feel small?" I froze, then nodded. "It's more than okay," I whispered. "It's necessary." She grinned. "Good." "I don't want to invite the cousins to my birthday party. They're always mean." I blinked. "Okay," I said. "It's your party. You get to choose." She pulled her blanket up to her chin and smiled like she'd just passed a test I hadn't realized she was taking. As I turned off the light, I realized something. I wasn't just healing myself. I was teaching my kids what I never learned until far too late, that real love doesn't make you smaller to fit the space. It expands the space to fit all of you. 2 weeks later, I got a message from my mother. "Your father and I would like to see the children. Perhaps we can do something for your birthday." I read it twice, then put the phone down. They hadn't mentioned the Christmas photos, or the table, or the conversation Angela and I had. Just the children, not me, that told me everything I needed to know. I didn't respond, not immediately. I needed space, and more than that, I needed clarity. That weekend, as we decorated for Emma's upcoming birthday, I watched her tape up invitations with glittery stickers and little hand-drawn hearts. She turned to me and asked, "Do I have to invite people I don't feel safe with?" I smiled. "No, baby, you never do, and neither do I." That night, I finally replied to my mother, "The kids are doing well. Their schedule is full, and so is our life. If you'd like to reconnect, it has to begin with honesty and respect. I'm no longer entertaining anything less." She hasn't responded since. But you know what? That silence feels lighter now, lighter than all the years I spent trying to earn my seat at a table that was never meant for me. Because here's what I've learned. Love that needs to be earned in silence isn't love. Love that excludes, belittles, or conveniently forgets isn't family. The family I have now shows up without needing to be asked. They text memes. They bring soup when my kids are sick. They remember my birthday. They cheer when I land a new client. They stay after dinner to help with dishes. And that's more than enough. Last week, Chef Cole called to confirm Christmas again. Same date, same menu with one addition this year. Emma's favorite maple, glazed carrots. Ryan requested s'mores. We're making those too. The guest list is bigger this time. Some new names, some old ones, all chosen, all welcome. This house, this table, this life, it's full. Full of laughter, full of mess and growth and homemade joy. Full of people who know how to make space, not excuses. If Angela ever chooses to truly show up, not for appearances but with sincerity, I'll open the door. But I won't beg, and if my parents want a relationship, they'll have to meet me where I am, not where it's comfortable for them, because we don't sit outside anymore. We own the porch, and this Christmas, like everyone moving forward, there will be 12 chairs around the table, every seat filled, no explanations, no apologies, no more waiting for a place, just warmth and a red door that only opens for love that knocks with grace.